At the end of the last video, we made you a promise. The names, the dates, the memos, the specific human beings who looked at the evidence, who read the warnings, who understood exactly what was going to happen to millions of American families, and signed off anyway. Tonight we keep that promise. These are not abstractions. These are not institutions. These are not systems. These are people, with names, with offices, with signatures on documents that still exist, and not one of them spent a single day in prison. After the 2008 collapse, the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission was established by Congress to find out exactly what happened. They interviewed over 700 witnesses, reviewed millions of documents, subpoenaed internal emails, memos, and risk reports from every major bank on Wall Street. What they found was not incompetence. It was not ignorance. It was not a failure of the system to catch warning signs in time. What they found was a deliberate, documented, repeated decision by specific named individuals to ignore every warning, suppress every internal dissent, and keep the machine running as long as humanly possible. The evidence was all there, in black and white, signed, dated, and filed. Let's go through it, name by name. Richard Fuld, known on Wall Street as the Gorilla, CEO of Lehman Brothers for 14 years. In 2006, Lehman's own internal risk officers flagged the firm's exposure to subprime mortgages as catastrophic. They wrote memos, they held meetings, they begged Fuld to reduce the firm's leverage. He overruled them, every time. In 2007, as the mortgage market began visibly cracking, Fuld received a briefing document from his chief risk officer warning that Lehman's balance sheet was a ticking time bomb. He increased their mortgage exposure anyway. Between 2000 and 2008, Richard Fuld personally collected $484 million in compensation from Lehman Brothers. In September 2008, Lehman filed for bankruptcy. 25,000 employees lost their jobs. Retirement accounts built over careers evaporated overnight. Fuld testified before Congress. He expressed regret. He was never charged. He currently runs a private investment firm in Manhattan. Angelo Mozilo, co-founder and CEO of Countrywide Financial, the largest mortgage lender in America. Countrywide didn't just participate in the subprime machine, they built it. By 2006, they were issuing 1 in 5 of every mortgage in the United States. In 2006, Mozilo sent a private email to his co-founder describing one of Countrywide's most popular loan products as the most dangerous product in existence, and there can be nothing more toxic. Countrywide continued selling that product for another 2 years. While Mozilo was describing his own loans as toxic in private, he was selling Countrywide stock, $140 million worth. The SEC charged him with securities fraud and insider trading in 2009. He settled for $67.5 million without admitting wrongdoing. He kept the rest. He never spent a day in prison. Henry Paulson, Secretary of the Treasury, former CEO of Goldman Sachs. Before we go further, you may have noticed something. In the last video, we told you about John Paulson, the hedge fund manager who made $1 billion betting the mortgage market would collapse. And now here is Henry Paulson, the Treasury Secretary who managed the aftermath of that same collapse. Same last name, same crisis. Both walked away with their fortunes intact, while millions of Americans did not. They are not related. The irony, apparently, is just that good. Now, back to Hank. In July 2008, 2 months before the collapse, Paulson publicly stated that the U.S. financial system was safer and more secure than at any point in recent history. He knew that was not true. Internal Treasury documents later revealed that by spring 2008, Paulson's team had already begun drafting emergency bailout legislation, months before he told the public everything was fine. In September 2008, Paulson walked into Congress and demanded $700 billion with virtually no oversight, no conditions, and no accountability. The original TARP proposal was 3 pages long, 3 pages, for $700 billion. Congress gave it to him. And the banks that received that money? Many of them were former Goldman Sachs clients. Some were run by former Goldman executives. Paulson recused himself from decisions involving Goldman Sachs, formally. The recusal was not enforced. Goldman received $10 billion in TARP funds and $12.9 billion through the AIG bailout. Paulson was never investigated. He wrote a book about it. It was called On the Brink. Stan O'Neill, CEO of Merrill Lynch. Under O'Neill's direction, Merrill Lynch accumulated $55 billion in toxic mortgage securities, more than any other firm on Wall Street relative to its size. In 2006, Merrill's own chief risk officer presented O'Neill with a detailed analysis showing the firm's mortgage exposure had reached dangerous levels and recommended immediate reduction. O'Neill fired him. He replaced him with someone more accommodating. In October 2007, Merrill Lynch announced a $7.9 billion write-down, the largest in the firm's history. O'Neill announced his resignation 3 days later. His severance package? $161 million. $161 million for driving one of America's oldest financial institutions to the edge of collapse. Merrill Lynch was sold to Bank of America in a fire sale 9 months later for a fraction of its value, engineered over a single weekend by the Federal Reserve. O'Neill was never charged. He currently sits on the board of Alcoa. By 2012, it was clear that no senior Wall Street executive was going to face criminal prosecution for the 2008 collapse. The Department of Justice, under Attorney General Eric Holder, made a decision, later confirmed in a leaked memo, that prosecuting the largest banks posed a serious risk to the financial system. Too big to jail. That phrase, never officially spoken, became the operating policy of the United States government. Holder left the DOJ in 2015. He returned to his previous employer, Covington and Burling, one of Washington's most powerful law firms, whose clients include Bank of America, Wells Fargo, J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup, the very banks he had chosen not to prosecute. The revolving door doesn't just spin between Wall Street and Washington. It's on a motor. Dick Fuld, Angelo Mozilo, Hank Paulson, Stan O'Neill. These are not villains from a movie. These are real men who made real decisions, who signed real documents, and who destroyed real families. 14 million Americans lost their homes in the decade following the 2008 collapse. Not because of an accident, not because of a perfect storm, because specific human beings with specific titles, in specific offices, on specific dates, decided their bonuses were worth more than your house. And the system that was supposed to hold them accountable was run by people who used to work for them. The vault gets richer, and somewhere, always somewhere, something else is burning. The next video, the Federal Reserve, the secret meeting on Jekyll Island, the private bank that controls the American economy, and who really owns it. Subscribe to Vault and Ruin. We go where the money went.